Hello, everyone. My name is Lupe Munoz.
And this is Steve McKeon, and welcome to Leadership Exchange.
We'd like to thank you for stopping by. This is our intro episode where we're going to spend a little time talking about ourselves, talk about why we're doing this, what we're trying to accomplish with this, and also give you sort of a high-level overview of what we will be covering as far as topics.
You know, as we've been discussing, Lupe, this is kind of similar to our car rides home, where we call each other on our respective rides and have these conversations. And, this is, I think, a great way to expand the conversations to other folks. But a little bit about myself. So I would say I'm a 30-year professional, dating myself in kind of an operations role. Started off my career early on as a firefighter, but then finished a degree, moved into environmental engineering. That led to a career in environmental health and safety. Also followed with about 20 years of work in lean manufacturing and operations environment, and really feel comfortable in both areas. And really excited to share my experiences on that journey and talk about some of the places that I've worked and some of the unique stories. I've had the opportunity to work internationally quite a bit, as well as nationally here in the United States. And everywhere I go, there's some common leadership things that I think people should be aware of and should know. And really appreciate the fact that I had some good mentors that taught me things early in my career, but I think I would have loved to learn them even sooner. Lupe, you want to go ahead and take it?
Sure, Steve. And I agree with that last comment. Absolutely. And we'll get into the little bit more of that. But as far as me, I, education-wise, engineer degree. I'm a little younger, I guess, than Steve. And because I have about 27, I did the math in about 27, maybe a little over 27 years in leadership roles. And those cover an Army career of 7 years where I was enlisted leader, and then I became a commissioned officer leader. But also then going into corporate America and, lots of different leadership roles, in mostly in manufacturing, but a little bit in the retail world. My background is also involves being a certified Lean Six Sigma black belt, for those of you that know what that means, using, the DMAIC process and doing Kaizen. So it was Lean and Six Sigma. So a really nice experience for me. And as Steve said, this is very much, we hope, like some of the discussions that we have. So Steve and I are peers. We work together. And we share a lot of things, I feel, a lot of beliefs. One thing we definitely share is the passion for good leadership and the passion of how you develop people, and also how you get teams to be able to be extremely effective at whatever it is that they're doing, while at the same time being very happy and very content and satisfied with their work and the things that they do day in and day out for whatever the business is. So Steve, one of the things about Steve that I really appreciate is that he has such a wide band of experience, different countries, as he was talking about. And me and Steve hit it off right away as far as some of the beliefs we had. And it was evident to me that he had a lot of, as I like to say, he had a lot of game when it came to actually using some of the concepts of, for example, servant leadership, or, some of the things involving the Socratic method. So, terms that maybe don't mean something to everyone on this podcast right now, but something that we'll probably talk to in the future, I anticipate. So Steve, why don't you talk a little bit more about like what it is that makes you want to do this?
Yeah, thanks, Lupe. It's kind of interesting, people that have similar uh, background or experience tend to find each other in organizations. So Lupe was at the organization that we both currently work at, and we kept bumping into each other, and it was clear to me, early on that Lupe had some qualities that I really admired in terms of truly caring about the team members that were part of his teams, and also investing in the time needed to help develop those individuals. And as we got to working together, we've evolved several opportunities to collaborate and team up with not only ourselves but a network of folks that really focus on leadership development in that servant leadership environment, but also the environment that creates high performance work teams that Lupe alluded to just a minute ago. And I think, Lupe, just to kind of circle back on, the reason why we're doing this podcast, not necessarily to share our car rides home, but to really kind of pay it forward, based on, those leaders that have shared their wisdom with us around leadership and what it meant to be a strong leader, and to serve those you lead. And, as I mentioned, I've had the fortunate opportunities to work with some great leaders, and also side by side with some fantastic leaders, Lupe Munoz among one of the best. And
Oh, I'm gonna owe you $20 for that now.
there you go. And I think that's really kind of what's bonded us, Lupe. If I could really talk honestly, it's having that common sense of purpose, to really support those teams that we work with, and support the organizations in a way that can really help organizations evolve, and using our lean backgrounds that we both have as well, really, has tied into this. And so, maybe tell the folks a little bit about, some of the general things that we've talked about in terms of, what leaders need to know, especially maybe people that are new to the leadership roles.
Yeah, absolutely. I think let me set the stage a little even more there around the topics of, or the topic of, hey, what are we going to discuss in this podcast? What are the topics that we're going to be covering? And you hit up on the first one, which was, we're really definitely going to talk about what we believe, what we've seen out there is a quality leader, and we will definitely dissect good leadership. Um, we have multiple facets of leadership that we hope to share with everyone. We're going to talk about cultural transformation. We're going to talk about that environment that allows cultural transformation, of empowerment, and of being able to foster a continuous improvement mindset and develop great problem solvers. All of these things, we believe, are key ingredients to having a highly effective team that is engaged, has a owner mentality about what they do within whatever company that you're with. And we really hope to be able to share this with those leaders out there that would love to be able to be that great leader. And but they're not sure exactly how to start. And we realize that there are, several people out there across the country, across the world, maybe even, that don't have the resources to be able to, call in a bunch of specialists on, or be able to travel to all these conferences. So we don't know everything, right, Steve? We definitely don't know everything.
Absolutely
Um,
correct.
we are not great authors of books. We do not have a speaking. We're not on tour speaking on this topic, but we still believe we can contribute something of value to everyone by just being genuine, being honest with our experiences, and hoping that people can learn from that, because as Steve said, we connected on a professional level, and I would say Steve's a friend of mine too, um, and that's grown out of the respect that I have for Steve and how he sees the role of the leader as it pertains to the one of the two most important people in a business, and that's the customer and the people that do the work. And we're going to really focus on the people that do the work, because as a leader, that is a common thread for every type of leader out there, no matter whether you have a nonprofit or whether you are part of a corporation, family-owned business, right? It's really going to be around, how can I inspire people to be great? How do I tap into that potential? Because you can have the best equipment, you can have the fanciest building, but without quality people and people working together well as a performing work team, it it becomes sometimes even almost not a great place to be. And we have shared experiences of both great and maybe not so great situations. There's always something to learn in those two scenarios. So I think that this is going to be something for us that we will be enjoying, but also hope that people will get some value out of it. And we will be asking for eventually for some feedback on topics we would maybe can cover on or talk about more.
Agree wholeheartedly with the reason for the podcast, and really kind of the areas that we want to focus on. And the reason is because we've got a deep respect for people, and we have a deep respect for those people that we serve, as a leader in the organization. And through that activity, and through those environments that we create, we've learned a thing or two, and definitely want to be able to share that with folks on this call. And as Lupe mentioned, we want to get other people to respond, give us some feedback as well to their experiences. I've got a lot of stories, as Lupe can tell you, just because of the experiences that I've had. So forgive me as I embellish a little bit in those stories. But one of the most interesting things that happened to me about 20 some years ago in my career was, we were really successful as a department or a function in terms of what we were able to achieve with the team that I had at the time. And we'd kind of gone from worst in class to best in class when it came to environmental health and safety performance in this organization. And I learned a lot through that process, that if you could find a way to connect with the people, to link the leaders of those people into just common conversations, you could really create this productive environment. And from that experience, I continue to really kind of focus in on the connection between leadership and people, and just how you can really optimize the environment that allows people to thrive, and organizations to really achieve those critical goals. Later on in my career, it all really came together. I had a great leader named Steve Gaffney, who had introduced me to the service profit chain model. And in that model, Steve talked about the way you are successful in any business environment is you've got to get that customer loyalty. And that made sense. I thought, okay, customer loyalty, that's going to equal profit. But then he asked the next question. He says, well, how do you get to customer loyalty? And, he started to think, or started to ask questions of the group that reported him. And it circled back to, well, we have to have good products, and we have to have quality products that the customer's happy with. And he said, yes, that's right, but that's not the end. What do you need before that? And then he introduced us to, this concept around, people that are really engaged, and to have people that are engaged, that you have that that employee loyalty, you really have to have employee satisfaction. And as Lupe mentioned earlier, to create that environment where people are comfortable, they're happy, they know they're contributing and how they're contributing, and that really equates to employee satisfaction. And then from there, it continues on into the different things you can work on to create that environment. But at the end, the thing that he pointed out to all of us was it all starts with leadership. As a leader, if you don't set up that environment for employees to thrive, you'll never achieve the end state of total customer satisfaction and be a profitable company. And I think you mentioned, Lupe, we've both got experiences of where we've seen great leadership create those environments, and also organizations that weren't set up that way, and typically they fail, or those leaders don't last long in that environment. um, I think, Lupe, the other thing that you'd mentioned, and I'm going to throw it back to you here in a minute, talk a little bit more, is just the importance of empowerment with employees, and some of the ways that you've achieved that, and we're going to talk about a lot of these in kind of greater detail. But I really love the fact, Lupe, that as you go into an organization, or you start working with a new team, you do some key things to really help team members understand who you are, but more importantly, you want to know who they are. So maybe you can share a little bit of that approach with folks to kind of really start the dialogue around creating the environment.
Sure, Steve. I would say that I learned that through several means. I learned it through other people, other leaders that I had experience with, and a lot of professional reading. Um, but what you're referring to is sort of like starting to establish the trust that you need to create, that you need to build, and it really falls on the leader. A lot of times, people are like saying, "Oh, trust is a two-way street." I it's a partnership, and I would say maybe so. That could be true, but as the leader, it's on you to set the tone, and so you have to start to begin working on trust, because you can't really those of you that know Simon Sinek, who's a great speaker on leadership that I admire. He did a great job one time to talk about, like, hey, I can't tell you to trust me, and you will. And it's absolutely right, because you have to earn that trust. You can lose it right away, but you've got to really work at it, and it falls on you as a leader. And it's about the accountability that you have, self accountability that you have as a leader, to be able to say, hey, I have to be the first one to extend my hand. I can't expect that to happen to me. People can't just trust you. So we will talk about that as part of our leadership segment, which is the first segment that we will cover in our next episode. And it's because of what Steve said. It's key that it all starts with the leader. It all cascades from the leader. They set the tone. Teams get the personality of a leader. Those of you that have seen coaching teams out there, coach teams, professional sports, you have a coach that's, hey, I'm a big on defense. I'm big on the fundamentals. I'm a highly disciplined type of coach, and you get teams that are highly disciplined, are very defensive. Then you get the run and gun coach. Hey, I'm all about opening it up and throwing the ball, and so that team will get that personality for various reasons. But probably the biggest one is because the leader is all about that, and so we believe that we have to start there. And if you're a leader out there that's hoping to accomplish a lot at work and want to progress and get more responsibility eventually, then we think we have something to offer you and others. And that's what we hope to accomplish.
Yeah,
Steve,
that's
I,
great.
I think that's enough for now. Unless there's anything that you feel that we've missed, I think this at least sets the tone on what we hope to talk about, and gives everyone a little background behind us or about us. But I think we'll end this, and we thank everyone out there for listening. Again, this is Lupe Munoz.
And I'm Steve McKeon. I definitely appreciate your closing comments, and I'm ready to wind it down as well. So welcome everybody to our podcast, the Leadership Exchange, and we look forward to more conversations in the near future.